Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, we are going to be breaking down the NFL draft that happened yesterday. Lots of wild turns, crazy picks, some stuff that I am still trying to wrap my head around. We'll break all of that down, the motivations behind some of it, if it's a good pick, the winners and the losers of the NFL draft, and more, including NBA playoffs, the Lakers on the brink of elimination, the Sixers behind Embiid's 50-point performance storm back into the series with the Knicks. We'll cover all of that on this show. All we need to do, and we'll cover all of that in just a second. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the link that's on the screen currently. That's gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a message. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. All you need to do is go to that link and you can control what we talk about here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. We appreciate all of you for tuning in, listening, for watching, and donating. But like I said, we have a lot to cover. The NFL draft is a wild, wild time. But let's just hop right into it. There's a lot going on right now. First round recap, right? It started off normal, very predictable. You had the top three picks all being quarterbacks. Caleb Williams obviously went number one overall. At number two, you could have a little bit of a discussion with Washington whether or not the right pick was Jaden Daniels, or if it's going to be Drake May, who went third. They're two very different situations. I think it's going to be tough to judge them against each other. If I was Washington, I would have taken Drake May. I know that Jaden Daniels has basically been linked to them the entire draft process. Everything about, I mean, he's a good quarterback. You know, his athleticism is almost unmatched. The way that he can run the ball compared to some of the other guys, and that's not to say that Drake May can't run the ball, but what Jaden Daniels does with the ball in his hands is very special. He can be that playmaker, kind of like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields-esque. He just has a little bit, and there's teams that have done it. There's players that have done that have come in with this kind of skill set and succeeded in the but, you know, it doesn't always happen. So you need to be a little more wary. I would have taken Drake May. He just seems like a slightly safer pick to me, but that's just me personally. The next pick that had a 4, Marvin Harrison goes. That's just the best pick for the Cardinals to take. Joe Alt goes 5 to the Chargers. I've heard some people saying that it's not what they would have done, that they would have taken a wide receiver, but sure, and sure, the Chargers wide receiver core is really, really thin. You've got Josh Palmer, you've got Quentin Johnson, and that's it. But this wide receiver draft is so deep. I mean, we've seen guys, Adonai Mitchell out there is still available. We saw a lot of receivers go at the end of the first round. Keon Coleman is still available. There's a lot of really good receivers left, and the Chargers picking 5 picks. The second round starts tonight. They have the chance to get a wide receiver here. You're not going to get a talent like Joe Alt in the second round. Joe Alt is going to be a very special talent. We talk about these rare athletes that come out of college at the offensive tackle position, and they're starting to come around a little more than we're used to. You know, they're starting to come around a little more often. Penei Sewell, guy on the Colts, Quentin, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. But these guys coming out at tackle are people you can't really pass up on, and Joe Alt falls into that category. So it's a good pick. They can get a really good receiver here in round 2 and 5 picks. So I'm not honestly all that worried about the Chargers getting a receiver here. Like I said, there are plenty of wide receivers still available on the draft. You have, Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, Brendan Rice. Some of these guys are going to go a little later. Tez Walker. But there's plenty of great receivers for you to fill that room with, and there's plenty that I would feel very comfortable taking here, in the second round, at the top of the second round. So definitely not out of the question, I apologize, for the Chargers to just get a receiver here. So I like that pick of Joe Alt. Giants get Malik Neighbors. They didn't need a quarterback. I know a lot of people were calling for another quarterback, but they're stuck with Daniel Jones for one more season, and they're just going to have to deal with that. So Malik Neighbors is the most explosive player in the draft. As a Giants fan, it was very nerve-wracking having J.J. McCarthy sitting there. I really thought they were going to do it. Thank goodness they did not. That's my thought. J.J. McCarthy going 10 to the Vikings, as I said yesterday, it's the one spot that he would be successful in, and he lands at the Vikings. They don't have to give up too much to get him. The Vikings had a really, really, really good draft. They got their quarterback at 10. They didn't have to give up too much, and then they trade up to 17 with their other first-round pick and get Dallas Turner, who falls all the way down out of the top 15, out of the top half of the draft, the Vikings are able to scoop him up there. But we've skipped over the most wild pick of the entire draft, and that is Michael Penix. Michael Penix goes 8 overall to the Falcons. And I want to start this breakdown off with saying Michael Penix is a good quarterback. I'm a big fan of Michael Penix. He is my third-ranked quarterback in this class. I have him ranked above Jaden Daniels. He's not going that high. He's a little older, but he's going to a spot in the Falcons that just doesn't make any sense. The Falcons are in a position where they have just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $100+ million deal. $100+ million guaranteed in this contract. They just gave him a boatload of money, a literal boatload of money, and not even a month after this contract is given out, they say, we're going to get you a replacement. We don't know how long you're going to be here. Let's go get this new guy. They bring in Michael Penix Jr. And this isn't, the way they explain this is they saw what the Packers did and they wanted to be like the Packers, which on this borderline, the surface, you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But what the Packers have done is they've drafted Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers in the 20s, right? You're not using a top 10 pick on these guys. These guys are falling into your lap at pick 24, at pick 22. I know they traded up for Jordan Love, but it's still in the 20s. It's also at the end of the cycle for quarterbacks. This was at the end of the run for Brett Favre. This was at the end of the run for Aaron Rodgers when these guys were picked. And also, Aaron Rodgers was super young when he was drafted. Jordan Love, super young when he was drafted. Michael Penix is already 24. He's already old to be a prospect, and that was one of the knocks on him. He was a college student for 5 or 6 years. He has been in college for quite some time, and he's a much older prospect. It's a positive and a negative. He has plenty of experience. He has plenty of snaps played. You can watch all the tape you need. You know what you're getting out of him, and what you're getting out of him is a really good quarterback. But he's also old, and he's not the kind of guy, or old for a draft play, just for someone to be drafted. He's not a guy that you can sit for 4 years. He has a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. If you ride it out with Kirk Cousins, and he plays all 4 of the years you signed him to, you are either letting Michael Penix go after not seeing him play, or you're giving him a 5th-year option without knowing what he is, without knowing him in game speed. And it's just not really smart, especially to use a top 10 pick on him. The Falcons have a lot of holes. It's not like this is the Packers that are in the playoffs every year, that are a really good team. They're picking in the 20s for a reason. The Falcons have picked number 8 3 years in a row. And now they come in and they basically waste a pick. You can go get, Michael Penix wasn't going to make it to the second round, to their next pick. And we all know that, the way that the quarterbacks fell. Bo Nix went in the first round, for God's sake. That's insane. There's no reason why Bo Nix should have gone in the first round. But he went in the first round. Michael Penix wasn't getting to them. Maybe they see this and we're never going to get another quarterback like Michael Penix. Maybe they just liked him that much. And maybe 4 years from now, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be wrong. Like I said, I love Michael Penix. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. But you're stifling his opportunities. You're making him sit for at least 2 or 3 years. And I think he could start for some teams. I think he's already at the level of a Gardner Minshew, of a Tyrod Taylor. I think he could compete with the job for the Raiders and be the starter right now. I don't know what the Falcons are thinking. They need a defense. They haven't had a pass rusher a good one in forever. They haven't had anyone go over 10 sacks in a really, really long time. They needed to get a pass rusher. There were plenty of really good pass rushers where they are. They had the option to take that first defensive player off the board. Instead, the first defensive player goes all the way down at 15. That's 14 offensive players in a row. That's a record. The previous record was 7. They blew that out of the water. That's insane. But taking Michael Penix here, and nothing against Michael Penix, it's just not a good situation for him. It's not a good situation for the team. You already have a brand new quarterback that hasn't really won the locker room over yet. If this is one of those things in sports that's super important and super underrated, we don't talk about it enough, is the fact that camaraderie is super important. And you're getting two quarterbacks that are coming in at the same time. And sure, there's already an understanding of who's going to be the starter. I assume it's going to be Kirk Cousins. You've paid him $100 million. But if he starts to struggle a little bit and Michael Penix plays good, it can cause a rift in the locker room and it can really ruin some stuff. The front office didn't tell Kirk Cousins this was happening. He was mad about it. The coach is mad about it. I don't know who pulled the trigger on this decision, but there's some kind of rift in the Atlanta front office between the owner, the GM, and the coach that led to this decision. It's just not going to work out in the long term with these guys. And it sucks because the Falcons have a really exciting team. They have Drake London, they have Bijan Robinson, they have Kyle Pitts. They have a solid offensive line. They got Kirk Cousins now. They've got all the pieces. They just need the defense to keep them in the games because Kirk Cousins will disappear sometimes, and you need a good defense to win a championship. But instead, they said, screw it. We're going to draft for 5 years in the future. The Falcons aren't in a position where they can be drafting 4 or 5 years in the future right now. And that's really what this boils down to. It's not a good pick because of the amount of draft capital that you've poured into it. If this was the pick at 28 instead of 8, I have no issues with it. None at all. The issue is that this is at pick 8 in a draft loaded with edge talent, and when you needed a pass rusher, loaded with defensive line position talent, then you needed someone that could come in and be an impact pass rusher, and the Falcons just did not get that done. They failed to do the job to get their team better. It's fine to get people for the future in drafts, but you see those guys go in the 4th round, the 5th round, the 6th round. You want at least a couple guaranteed started, especially with a top 10 pick. You don't want to be stuck in this situation where you're a top 10 pick every year like the Falcons have been, and this is why. This is why they're continuously being a top 10 pick. They're planning for the future when they should be planning for now. They're still in their rebuild phase. They're not in their contention phase. It just doesn't make sense. It's my thought on that pick. The other big pick that I had issues with is Bo Nix at 12. But we will break down the rest of the first round coming up in our next segment. Top 10 was pretty predictable outside of Michael Penix. The Bears had a great draft, getting Rome Odunze and pairing him with Caleb Williams. They were huge winners. That wide receiver core is now going to be one of the best in the entire league. You talk about a receiving core of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. Oh, and throw Cole Kmet in there as well, because Cole Kmet is a very solid tight end. And then you finally get a presumable franchise quarterback. The Bears have never had a good quarterback in their entire history. Caleb Williams could come in and be the greatest quarterback in Bears history like that. He just needs to have one really good season. Throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. He's the greatest quarterback in Bears history immediately. And he might be able to do that this season. Watch out for the Bears. They had a really good offseason. They had a dream draft. The Bears might be a sneaky NFC North pick. Maybe. We'll come to that in a little bit, though. But like I said, we'll break down the rest of the first round coming up in our second segment. Stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
on my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with me through that break. If you were just tuning in, we have broken down the first 10 picks of the NFL draft from yesterday. We're going to finish up the first round in this second segment, breaking down some more picks. We talked a lot about Michael Penix in that first segment. We're going to talk more about quarterbacks here, some more head-scratching moves that happened in the draft, especially later on with some trades. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. All you need to do is go to the link that is on the screen right now. Your question will determine what we talk about here on the show. It will be answered right away. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, listening, donating, and sticking with me. Like I was saying, we're going to finish breaking down this NFL first round draft because there were a lot of really interesting picks. Interesting not necessarily being a bad thing. Interesting could be good, but there were definitely some bad. And we'll start right off with some bad. We'll just continue with it right off the bat. The Jets made a fine pick. They got offensive line depth with Olu Fashanu at 11. That's a fine pick. Nothing wrong with that. You can always use that. But number 12, the Broncos take the 6th quarterback off the board. 6 quarterbacks in 12 picks. That's an NFL record. That's a quarterback every other pick, which is ridiculous. There's no need for that. Especially when you start getting down to the bottom couple quarterbacks. The bottom 3, I don't think, should go in the first round. They did, that being Penix, McCarthy, and Bo Nix especially. Bo Nix is not worth a first-round pick. Bo Nix is especially not worth a top 15 pick. It's a move out of desperation, and I know that's been the take around the entire media, or a lot of the media that I've been seeing, but it's true. Bo Nix is not an NFL franchise quarterback. Sure, his last year at Oregon, surrounded by all that talent, he had a 77% completion rating. But if you go back and look, it was all checkdowns. It was all short throws. He didn't make these great plays. Sure, he's a little bit athletic. He can break some tackles. He's a bigger guy. But if you go back just a couple years ago when he was playing in the SEC, when he was playing for Auburn, it was a mess. People would not touch him in the NFL with a 10-foot pole. And now we are, just a couple years removed from that. And he is going number 12 overall to a Denver Broncos team that he is not going to be able to thrive behind. A Denver Broncos team that is already strapped for talent. They get rid of Jerry Jeudy. They're left with Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. It's a fine wide receiver core. The offensive line is in shambles. The defense is in shambles. They've invested so much money in players that are not on the team anymore, in players like a Russell Wilson, who they're paying $80 million. $80 million to not be on the team, to go play for the Steelers. It's not the right move. The Broncos, I know they don't have a second-round pick, right? And that makes this a little worse, right? This move to me says, hey, I need to get one of these top 6 quarterbacks, and there is zero chance in my mind, from the Broncos' perspective, that this guy is going to be here in the 3rd round when we have our next pick, And you reach, and when I say reach, I mean you reach to go and get this guy. You make a huge gamble. Like, they're not picking again until 312, 76th overall. And it's just not going to work out. And I hate to say it with such confidence, but Bo Nix is not an NFL starting quarterback. Bo Nix is not a player like a J.J. McCarthy, who I have been hating on for quite some time. Again, I don't think he deserves to be a top 10 quarterback, but at least if you put J.J. McCarthy in a system like the Minnesota Vikings with great play calling, with great talent surrounding him, he can succeed in that. Bo Nix is not going to be able to make these decisions in the NFL quick enough, with enough accuracy and timing. It's just not going to work out. He hasn't done anything to wow me, to make me say, hey, maybe I should change my view on Bo Nix. Maybe Bo Nix can be a starting quarterback. There has been nothing that I've seen this entire draft cycle that leads me to that conclusion. Bo Nix is a fine quarterback. He can be an okay backup. He's a check down merchant. You don't throw 77% completions if you're pushing the ball downfield. It just doesn't happen. The greatest quarterbacks in the league of all time don't have a 77% completion percentage through a whole season. It just doesn't happen. You don't complete 80% of your balls unless you're throwing them, all of them, within 5 yards, behind the line of scrimmage. It's not gonna work, especially in an offense that doesn't have those kind of explosive players. They don't have those guys like a Troy Franklin that can really just separate and get wide open all the time. It's not a good pick. It's a reach, and the Broncos were desperate to get a quarterback. They traded for Zach Wilson, and they bring in Bo Nix. I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Wilson wins that starting job. And I know that's kind of insane to say in 2024 that Zach Wilson might be the starting quarterback for an NFL team. But you take a look at that roster. It's not good. Zach Wilson at least has shown the ability to have great games in the NFL. He's done it before. We've seen it. Bo Nix is not going to have that, and Bo Nix will probably start the season, but he's going to struggle, and they're probably going to have to switch. It's going to be another situation like the Jets last season with Zach Wilson, where they were switching quarterbacks constantly. They couldn't find the right one. It's a mess in Denver, and they should have embraced the rebuild. I know they've just brought in Sean Payton, and Sean Payton wants to compete and win games, but you're not in a position to do that. The Broncos are not in a position where they can comfortably compete and win games in a division with the Chiefs. They need to go back and rebuild. 3 teams in their division are rebuilding, and they're 2 steps ahead of the Broncos. The Raiders and the Chargers already are steps into their rebuild. They're not hard resetting, especially the Chargers, because they have Justin Herbert. But the Raiders are hard resetting a bit. The reset button. They need to move on, and they need to build a base. They need to go back to basics, and they need to stop reaching on these quarterbacks. There's been a lot of bad Bronco quarterback picks since Peyton Manning. You talk about Paxton Lynch. You talk about a couple other guys in there that just have not worked out very well for the Broncos. It's been a quarterback carousel there, and it doesn't feel like it's going to end. Especially with Bo Nix. I don't think that was the right pick. I think that maybe might have been the worst pick in the first round. Brock Bowers is a steal for the Raiders. I know that they already have Michael Mayer, but getting Brock Bowers, who can work as a receiving threat tight end, you can put him on the outside. He's big, he's physical, he's faster than a lot of people. He's going to be a huge plus for that offense. The Saints get offensive line. They need offensive line. And then the first defensive player goes. Latu goes to the Colts. Huge pickup for them. He's very, very good at football. But the Vikings, like I said before, they trade back up to 17, get Dallas Turner. They needed edge rushers badly. They lost all of their edge rushers to free agency or retirement this season. And Dallas Turner is going to provide a spark off the edge, pairing him with the rest of that defense, finally get some pressure on the quarterback. And the Eagles get a gift. The cornerbacks really fell in this draft. There wasn't a first defensive player until 15, and there wasn't our first corner until Kenyon Mitchell went at 22. Kenyon Mitchell going at 22. The Eagles don't have to move to get maybe the best cornerback in the draft in a really stacked cornerback draft. You have Terrion Arnold going two spots behind him, Nate Wiggins going at 30. These three guys were definitely the top of the class there. I'm surprised more corners didn't go. There were a lot of wide receivers taken, but I am surprised more corners didn't go in this draft. Like I said, a little bit shocking to me, not something that I would have expected. Wide receivers really had a run at the end, and I want to talk a little bit about the Bills here, because the Bills needed a wide receiver, right? They did. They traded away Stephon Diggs, they lost Gabe Davis in free agency, and now their wide receiver one is they don't really have a wide receiver one. They have the option at 28 to get a lot of great wide receivers. Sure, the top 4 options are off the board in the big 3 and Brian Thomas, but you have a lot of great options there at 28 that you can build around. Instead, they trade with the Chiefs, their biggest non-division rival in the AFC, and gift them Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, speed kills. As I've said before, he set the record, the NFL all-time record for the 40-yard dash, a 4.21. That doesn't happen. You don't get speed like that every day. And they let the Chiefs draft that. With Andy Reid and his system, what they're going to be able to do with Xavier Worthy is going to be a lot of fun. He has the speed of a Tyreek Hill. He's got to work on his hands a little bit. He can fix that, I believe. But you lose Rashee Rice. You basically lose Kadarius Toney. I don't know what happened to him last season. You bring in Hollywood Brown. It's a good wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver. He's fast, and the Chiefs need that speed. Marquez Valdes-Scantling isn't a guy that you want as your deep threat because he doesn't have good hands. He drops way too many balls. Xavier Worthy is going to be used in really creative ways in that offense, and I'm very excited to see what he does, but the Bills trade completely out of the first round. They make 2 trades, they get more draft capital, and they need a lot of draft capital, don't get me wrong, and they're probably going to pick up one of those top wide receivers here at the top of the second whenever the draft starts, but giving the Chiefs exactly what they need when you are, their biggest competition is not a smart move. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The Bills are going to figure it out. They are, but as of right now, through one round, they're another one of those losers for me. Let me know what you guys think of what your teams did in the first round. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the NFL first round. We'll keep an eye out on the rest of the draft over the weekend. But stick around. We're going to transition into the NBA for our third and fourth segments. Break down some of the big games with the Knicks and the Lakers. So stick around for that. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we have just finished breaking down the entirety of the NFL first-round draft, talked about some crazy quarterback decisions, uh, in a really offensive-heavy first round, leaving a lot of really good talent. Staying for the second round, a lot of great wide receivers. Cooper DeJean, Johnny Newton is still out there. I'm excited to see where these guys end up and land. I think there's a lot of opportunities for trades at the top of the second to go get some of these guys. But here in our third segment, we're going to transition out of the NFL. We are going to move into a little bit of basketball. We're going to talk about the 76ers game here first, and then we're going to talk about the Lakers in the fourth and final segment. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation at the link that's on the screen right now. That's GSMCpodcast.net, and you can control what we talk about here on the show. All you need to do, if you leave that tip or donation with a message, that message will pop up on the bottom of the screen. For you, me, and everybody else watching, and news updates. And the Bucks game has officially started 5 minutes in. During 8-10 Pacers with 7.5 to go. We're going to talk about these. And then it came out after he suffered with Paul. For those who are unaware, is a case. He didn't want that to come out in the media. Maybe that was affecting the game a little bit. I didn't notice it when I was watching, so that's all good. But it'll go away, and I think by the fact that it was reported means that it was already better and going away, because he said he wanted to keep it private and it not be a distraction for the team. But he comes out in their first home game of the playoffs, in a game that they needed to win if they wanted to continue their run in the NBA playoffs, down 2-0 to the Knicks that have looked really, really solid. He puts up 50 points. A new playoff career high for him, 50 points, domination. He finally did what I expected him to do. That dominant force inside. He got to the free throw line 21 times. He shot 21 free throws. He made 19 of them. 19 for 21 from the line, 13 of 19 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. He was ridiculously efficient last night against the Knicks. He was a dominant force. 50 points is insane. You're not going to be able to stop that. And they win by 11. If Joel Embiid can play like this, the Knicks aren't going to win another game. And you can't expect Joel Embiid to go out and give you 50 points every night. You need better performances from your supporting cast. Tyrese Maxey has been playing really good. He was a little inefficient last night's game. He was 9 for 21. But you need better performances off your bench. You bring in a guy like Buddy Hield, who I thought was going to have a huge impact coming off the bench and providing spacing and scoring for a team like the 76ers. He hasn't done much of anything. In this series. He only played 4 minutes last night, and I understand with the way that the rest of the team's been going, but his shooting is something that I think the Sixers are going to need later on. You have Batum kind of taking on that role, and he's a good shooter when he's on. He played 30 minutes, only took 2 threes, but there's there's a lot of stuff that goes into it here. The Sixers dominate this game, and it's good to see if you're a Sixers fan. It's good to see if you're an NBA fan without a lot of stake in this, because this series has the potential to be one of the better series in the entire first round, because you're taking a team like the Knicks, who are the second seed for a reason. Their team is really, really good, and then you're going against one of the best players in the entire NBA in Joel Embiid. And you're taking a look at these two contrasting players, these two different styles, and we're deciding a winner here. I think the winner of this series is going to make it to the NBA it's the Eastern Conference Finals. Um, most likely facing the Celtics, as long as they can get past the voodoo magic of the Heat. But the 76ers really turn it on in this game, and it was really impressive. Well, and like I said, if you play like this for the rest of the series, the Knicks are in trouble. Jalen Brunson almost went bar for him. He played 45 minutes, scored 39 points, had a 39-point double-double with 13 assists. The Knicks had really good games, really good performances out of their top guys. 4 starters in double digits. OG Anunoby puts up 17 points, and Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart puts up 20. Like I already talked about Jalen Brunson, what he did. It was a very impressive performance from Philly, and I think being at home definitely helped. The Knicks are a very good team. They're a scrappy team. They're not going to go away easy. There's a reason they're a 2 seed in the East. But you have to remember at the same time that these 2 teams are only separated by 3 games. So it's not like this is a team that's leagues better than the Sixers. Home court advantage has been a big deal so far in the playoffs. Really around the whole league, it's been a very, very big deal. So taking a look at what the Sixers are getting done at home, 50 points, you can't count on that every night. You can't. But at the same time, you need to be able to get that kind of performance every night. He doesn't need to score 50 every night, but he needs to be that dominant presence on the inside, getting the Knicks in foul trouble. There's a reason that he got to the line 21 times. Hartenstein had 5 fouls. Robinson had 3 fouls. Achua had 3 fouls. These big guys down low, they all were in foul trouble for a lot of the game. It was tough to guard Joel Embiid because he's big and physical and he's drawing fouls. If he continues to draw the fouls like he is in this third game, it's going to be really tough for New York because they were counting on those inside guys to slow him down, and they had been doing that back in New York, but in Philly it's a different story. Completely different story. So, very, very impressive performance out of Joel Embiid, out of the entirety of the Philadelphia 76ers team in a huge bounce-back game that they needed if they wanted a chance to win this series. If they fell behind 3-0, they're done. They're out of the series for good, and they are not coming back. Very, very impressive win. Before we move on to our 4th and final segment, just a quick update on the Pacers and Bucks game. It's 12-18 right now with 5 minutes to go in the first. Pacers are up by 6 in a series that's tied at 1. Still no Giannis Antetokounmpo in this game, but Chris Middleton has 6 points, and Miles Turner has 6 points. Pascal Siakam has 4. Tyrese Halliburton also has 4. It's going to be another one of those high-scoring games that we've become accustomed to in this series between the Pacers and the Bucks. It looks like the Pacers at least have the early upper hand. You talk about rebounding. They've got an early lead in that. They're passing the ball a lot better. They've got 6 assists. The Bucks have none. That teamwork, the way that they move the ball around, is a big part of their game. But we'll continuously update you on this. But like I said, in our next segment, we are going to move on to talk about the Lakers and if they have a chance to make a miraculous comeback against the defending champion Denver Nuggets. Stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts, reviews, sports, and relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we've broken down the entirety of the NFL first round draft. Round 2 is today. They'll finish up the draft over the weekend, and we will have a full review on Monday talking about winners and losers from the draft. But first round, quick reactions are earlier today in the show in the first and second segments. Let me know what you thought about what your teams did. We just finished breaking down Joel Embiid's masterful performance in a Game 3 that they needed to win to stay in the series with the New York Knicks. They pulled back one game the first at home. New series. It's from this segment of 2 games. The Lakers fall once again. They're down 3-0 in that series. A shot to win a game. Are they going to get swept? We'll talk about that as well as Matt dominated the Cavs and to take their free in the series. So, if you be in a bigger part of the show than you are, all you do is go to GSC.Tune and a message will pop up on the screen. Everybody else around the world to see. All you need to go to that link, GSCPodcast.net, leave a tip or donate, and appreciate all of you for second and support GSMC Podcast. Like I was saying about Lakers on the brink elimination against the Nuggets. The Nuggets, again, are just better than Lakers. And where this ends and how we there. But if I rise into one sense, okay, he's their team today. Turns up. LeBron James puts up 26, 6 and 9. Anthony Davis puts up 33, 15. Austin Reeves 22, 5 and 4 or 22, 5 and 3 with 4 steals. What really hurts is D'Angelo Russell and his shooting. 24 minutes, 0 points, 0-6 from 3. It's not a good stat line. The bench isn't bright enough to make up for the 1 or 2 starters that aren't doing their job every time. If this is a game that they could have won, right? Much like the last game, this is a game they could have won. Jokic just kind of willed them to victory like he does every single time. Aaron Gordon had a huge game on the inside. He almost puts up 30 points. He goes 29-15. There's 3 Nuggets players that have double-doubles. Aaron Gordon, 29-15. Michael Porter, 20 and 10. And Nikola Jokic, who was 1 assist shy of a triple-double, 24, 15, and 9. Jamal Murray, also 1 assist short of a double-double. He had 22, 5, and 9. It's just, they're overwhelming them, that starting lineup. And the Lakers don't really have the ability to stop them. If you slow down one of these guys, the next one is going to show up and dominate you, Jokic only put up 13 shots last night. And he's still able to go nearly a triple-double, dominate the rest of the team, pass it off more, let Aaron Gordon get some shine, let Michael Porter put up his shots, let Jamal Murray take his shots, really spread the ball around. This Nuggets team is just so well put together, especially with Jokic. It's easy with Jokic because he has that gravity that's going to draw everybody in. He's got that gravity that's going to draw your big defenders in and that's going to leave these guys open. The Lakers are down 3-0. And just like last year in the conference finals, they got swept. I still feel like LeBron James can will this team to a victory. It's LeBron James. This team isn't as bad as it looks against the Nuggets. It's not. But at the same time, it's just not looking good for the Lakers. They're not getting that kind of production that they need out of their bench. They're having people disappear every single time. Last night, it was D'Angelo Russell. 0 points, 24 minutes. In game 2, it was Rui Hachimura, 3 points. And at the same time, he did a great game, 9 points. But Rui Hachimura in 38 minutes only had 3 points and 1 shooting. In game 1, 7 points. The guy that you're counting on a lot, you're giving him a lot of minutes, and you need him to be productive. There's always at least one starter in every single one of these that has been kind of detrimental to the team. And it was Rui in the first game again. They need a full performance out of all 5 of their starters if they want a chance to win. They need none of their guys to disappear, and they just haven't been able to get that out of everyone. It's a shame. It really is a shame because, like I said, they're very good, and I think they have ability. They have the roster to make, but they're just not getting it done, and it doesn't seem like they're going to get it done at the end of the day. The other game that happened in yesterday was the Cavs game and almost been carried 1-14. The Magic really good. 20 at home. You take a look at their record. It's 18-20 when you take the game passion. They won 2 players. Very 0-3. They also did a bad game. 6 for 16 in only 20 minutes of game action. Really, the entire team didn't play that shooting percentage. Less than 40%. Less than 25% from 3. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. And the Magic on the other side shot 50% and 35% from 3. They had exactly the kind of game to expect out of them in an elimination game. Not really in a game where their back is against the wall. Not an elimination game. The Cavs need to bounce back, at least show a little bit, because if the Magic carry this momentum heading into Game 5 in Cleveland and they take that, I don't think the Cavs are winning this series. I think Game 5 or this Game 4, depending on how the Cavs respond, is really crucial. If the Cavs are able to come back and show that they're not out, they're not a shot of holding on to the series. If they're unable to do that and they are unable to hold the stage, it's not going to set up, and the Cavs and Magic could go either way. Final update here in the Bucks Pacers before we head out. The Pacers have opened it up. They're up 32-18 with an they dominate steals right now. It's a good way to win a game. Obi Toppin off the bench already has 11 points. He's 5 for 5 from the field with a 3. He's got 2 fouls though, so the way he's playing, if he can stay out of foul trouble, it's going to be tough to win. I'll update you at the end of the first again. We'll go through some predictions for this weekend real quick before we we get to see Luka and Kawhi go out again in Dallas. I think the Mavericks will take this one since it's in Dallas. Excuse me, but it's going to be a lot tighter than people think. And the Suns show something. If they don't game, or if they don't look competitive, and they need to win this game. If they don't win this game, they're out. Even with that stacked roster, they're not meshing well with each other. They need to figure it out. So yeah. That's my thoughts on these games. We'll take a look at all of them over the weekend. We'll break them down. We'll break down the entirety of the NFL draft, pick the winners and losers, and we'll have MLB Power Rankings for the first month of the season. So we'll see you on Monday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back here on Monday, same time, same place. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Bye.